All right, thank you everyone for coming, patients especially, colleagues, my staff is here too. So why are we here? I can't believe the power of something that I have to share. The power of this OMST is so powerful that I wanted to get into other practitioners' offices. Patients beg me to try to get it into other practitioners' offices. It's life-changing. You're going to hear little snippets of their life-changing benefits that occurred to them through something that they didn't find very soon. It took, of course, what we all go through, our patients go through, all the other interventions sometimes before they get to us. Yeah, I mean, okay. So the sooner we get our patients, all right, the better their lives change, the quality of their lives. So I love to talk about this and how it differentiates from the other therapies we do. The other therapies being envision therapies such as Vectogram, Brock string, accommodative flippers, Virgin's training. All that is cortical top-down therapy. Patients aren't ready for that sometimes, whether it's the ADHD kids, the autistic population, the concussion patients especially. They're not ready for that type of therapy, so we crash and burn them. Shelley, did we crash and burn some patients back 12 years ago before we had this? Yes. Yes, and we've all done that. What do? We're giving them too much cortical activity, meaning cognitive. Do this, now do that. Do this, now do that. Concussion patient can't do that. A child can't always respond to that very effectively. So you put them into a passive, controlled, safe environment of input-only therapy that is subcortical based, brainstem, instead of the cortical approach. That is the big difference in this approach to what we're doing as vision therapists and neurooptometrists. So we're already, colleagues, we are already using some tools in our toolbox that is passive input only, Prism, Syntonics, filters, low plus lenses, right? Those are all great passive bottom-up therapies. But the bottom-up therapy that this represents is completely different. It really represents where a child starts in their development. And before that, even where a child's brain is developing in the embryo. For example, I'm going to go to now a discussion about senses. What grade were you in, or what age were you when you first learned about senses? Do you remember? Give me an answer. Anybody?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten? I think. I'm sorry?
Third grade.
Okay. No? Okay. You learned senses in embryonic phase. In utero, you learned your senses. You learned touch, feel, motion. You learned smell. You learned hearing. And believe it or not, you actually were learning sight. Studies have shown that if you shine a light at a belly of a pregnant woman, the baby will turn away from it. And they have images of babies with their eyes open in the womb. So we are doing all sensory learning still in the womb. That's where we're really learning senses. Now, I tricked you. The trick question was, when did you learn about senses? Okay, I would just answer the same thing. First grade, maybe? Okay. But if sensory processing or reception of sensory information coming in is learned very well by a baby in the womb, and as soon as they're born, they learn it, they're going to have a much better chance at learning cortically. So what is sensory learning? A baby comes out of the womb, they're learning, a different vision, a different sound, all these sounds, sights, motions that's new, feelings that are totally new, smells, tastes. It's a learning process for up to age 3 that's critical. If they have sensory input, modulation, learning about how to regulate that sensory input and pay attention to what's important and what's not so important at the moment, they're going to be calmer, be able to receive input that is cortically based, so they can start learning their ABCs, math facts. But they have to have that sensory integration ability really solid. So the kids that are really struggling with development and learning sometimes, it's just because they're not really built foundationally with sensory processing. It's really, what's important is the word multi-sensory processing. Sensory processing could mean vision processing, auditory processing, taste, sound, etc. But multi-sensory, that's the processing that has to really be learned by age 3, 4, before they are ready to go to kindergarten, first grade, and learn cortically. So, what the heck? Why do we have adults here to speak to us? Because they've suffered concussion, some of them. Concussion will cause a loss of function and sensory regulation. Stuff that you learned all those years ago, you got something miswired there. A whiplash or any shaking of the brain will cause sensory dysregulation. And so the world is just a whole confusing, broken, shattered environment. And life is crap, right? So whether it's a child on the spectrum, a child developmentally delayed learning-wise or behaviorally-wise, okay, could be the source root of that could be sensory integration difficulties. So let's remedy that, okay, before we start trying to expect them to go and do cortical-based things, whether it's classroom learning, intervention from tutoring, or vision therapy. So the OMST system is going to prime and prepare these patients of yours in vision therapy to be more receptive to their vision therapy, to school, to tutoring, to their speech therapist intervention, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to be calmer, more confident, more willing to explore their environment. Okay, we all do in vision therapy, developmental vision therapy, we do all that. We get those patients out there exploring space. We get them exploring, even our adults, we make them explore space. Use prisms, activities, et cetera, et cetera. But that again is a lot of active instruction and follow these, and then we tell you what to do right then at another minute or two. Whereas in OMST, you're lying on a table in a supine position to get parasympathetic engagement. You're being rotated to get vestibular stimulation. You're getting syntonic light therapy that's sitting right above your eyes. You're getting ocular motor therapy as you watch the light. You're getting the auditory stimulation, and it's all programmed and been proven for the last few decades, clinically shown to be extremely effective. So I was blown away by it, and I said, I've got to get this to the world. I've got to get it before I leave this earth. I've got to get this to the world. Otherwise, I could be out playing golf more. I could be playing my music more. Well, I did. Certainly today I played in a performance, snuck out of the conference, played a performance, got to play tomorrow night, got to play Saturday night. I love my music. It's great. But this is what I got to do first, is get this to more, get this OMST to more of my colleagues. So please consider it and spread the word. The folks here, we just had a little meeting before he came in here, and it is like tear-jerking to hear their stories. You all have great case presentations you can give, testimonials from patients, I know. But I think it'd be hard to find as many as I have that are so powerful and so amazing in such a short period of time that we get the effects out of this. So I'd like to first make sure, what questions do you guys have based on what I've said up to this point? Anything like not make sense? Okay. Yeah, the auditory is a sound track of music that's choppy. So it's modulated music, and that's choppy. There's auditory listening programs. The auditory listening programs on the market. This is what we're using. Something very similar to it. It's to provide the patient with the challenge to have to take this choppy music, and as the frequencies change and as the music fades in and out, they have to fill in the gaps. So the brain is continuing to have to wire and fill in gaps. All right, take this changing environment. When you walk around a room, walk around the world, sit in the classroom, auditory inputs are coming at all kinds of different rates and sounds. So this program helps train the brain to learn how to manage that and be okay with it. And if that's a really difficult part for the patient, they're getting vision and motion, and that's supporting the auditory processing. Multisensory processing is everybody working together. vision, auditory, motion, vestibular, working together. That's how we're born, it's how we evolved, and it's how we learn. All right. The light is also modulation. So you saw at the conference exhibit the light modulating off and on. The table motion up and down. We change it one day to the next, different direction. Why? Because the nervous system will engage better and receive any kind of intervention better if it's being presented with novel, intermittent change. If you give a constant stimulus to a patient or to the nervous system, it adapts and then it becomes disengaged from that stimulus somewhat, starts to disregard it. So you have to keep changing that. So this system is programmed to continue to challenge the nervous system gently to re-engage into sensory inputs in a multi-sensory processing manner. And that really gets the brain ready for bigger, complex tasks. You can think clearer, you can walk better, balance improves, hearing improves, memory improves, speech improves, behavior, affect improves, personality. I have my husband back, I have my daughter back, I have my wife back. Okay, you hear those things in just 30 days. 30 days this program works that fast, most of the time. We're actually starting study on it at the College of Optometry in California, Pomona, California. Western University College of Optometry is beginning studies on it. They have a system in place. So we're real excited about that. My studies that I've published, a few studies, written articles, I never wanted to do statistics, I never wanted to do research, never wanted to speak in front of people, never wanted to publish articles, but this OMST, this sensory integration process, the power of it, I had no choice. I had to do it. And you will not regret it if you do put this in your practice. That's a guarantee. If you're the right person. If you're one of those plug and play people, it's like, and then I don't want to have anything to do with it, just put that Benovi on the wall and then just, no, you've got to really be passionate about helping the patient get through a really tough recovery. That's what neurorehabilitation is, that's what developmental vision therapy is. So most of us are already like that. But if you're, gotta have it. I would like to have a volunteer patient begin to tell their story, and we're going to just hear kind of what primarily is so profound to them as a result of getting exposed to this therapy, okay? So, where would we start? Sabrina, are you up for that?
Yeah,
Since you're right to my left. Okay, Sabrina.
Hi, my name's Sabrina. I'm 24 years old, and I'm a pediatric psych nurse. What's the question?
Yeah. So what is the most primary benefit or powerful thing about this that you would want my colleagues to understand from your story?
I
What?
got my life back.
Yeah, got my life back.
I got my life back.
Now tell what else you had already been through,
Okay, so
leading up to finding us.
let's see. So I have kind of a complex neurological, issues. So I had a concussion that lasted for a year in fall of 2014. Then I had tick-borne illness symptoms starting in spring of 2017, and I didn't get diagnosed with Lyme disease until spring of 2019. I also had debilitating migraines after the concussion, and we didn't end up finding a neuro-optometrist. We didn't know that we needed that until 4 years later after my concussion. So I started seeing Dr. Padula at the Padula Institute of Vision.
Anybody heard of Dr. Padula by chance?
In
One of our
December
wonderful pioneers.
of 2018. And so we started with the prism lenses and the vision rehab, the eye exercises, and that helped. I know that whenever I had the prism lenses, that was great. My migraines would go away, and then as soon as I needed a new pair, I was going through a new pair every 6 months, I think, the migraines would start back up again. And so then, let's see, I was then diagnosed 2 years after that, so 4 years since the symptoms started, with 2 other tick-borne co-infections, Babesia and Bartonella. And then, let's see, I got whiplash in a car accident.
That was 2 years ago, 3
Yeah, that was
2 or 3?
Yeah, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then, let's see, and then, I moved here in May of last year from Rhode Island, and I passed my nursing exam. I started working as a nurse, and a month and a half into working as a nurse, my neurooptometric system just gave out. It had never happened before, not during my concussion, not through all of my time with Dr. Padula, and my eyes were spasming at work. I couldn't see anything. I had vertigo. All of the blinds had to be closed at home. My balance was awful. I couldn't go down the stairs. I was super anxious all the time. I could not function. And fortunately, I had already set up an appointment with Dr. Curtis because I knew when I moved here that I needed to find a neuro-optometrist that specialized in concussions. And so I called, and they didn't have any openings for like 3 months. But they had room during Thanksgiving, and so I went and I started this treatment, and I don't have migraines anymore. My balance is great. I can function. I can socialize.
You're here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch it. And Mom has some things to say.
Yes, Sabrina really has come back to us.
Yeah.
She has increased energy, more focus. I would say she's not irritable. And I was just saying the other day, we went out for a walk, and she literally skipped down the sidewalk.
Because I was happy. I felt good.
That's it.
Okay,
Says a lot.
Becky, your turn. I'm going to cry too.
Yeah, no, that does say a lot. So my name is Becky, and I was a critical care nurse and will be again someday, I'm sure. I had a very severe fall in 2019, so it's been about 3 years. And when I went, the first doctor said, "Oh, if you're not broken or burned, we send you back to work." Well, I went back to work on one crutch, three limbs, and in a daze. And I couldn't even function. And as a nurse, my fellow nurses were like, "What are you doing here? You probably have a concussion." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm sure I do." And about 5 days after that, I woke up, my head was gonna explode. I was like, okay, I have a brain bleed. And so I called and said, I need a CAT scan. That was totally normal. Well, thank God it was, but there was still something wrong with me. And after going through several doctors, went to one neurologist who said, "Oh, well, your MRI is perfectly normal." And my husband looked at him and said, "But she's not normal. How can we fix her?" And he's like, "We'll try another medication." And medications are great, and I do take medication, but that's not the only answer. Once I got through the initial physical therapy of just being able to walk and my limbs that were strained and sprained and everything, we realized how bad the concussion was, and they reclassified it as a mild traumatic brain injury. And they sent me to PMNR to do rehab. He sent me to the top, I'm from North Cincinnati, so in Cincinnati, to some top brain, some therapy that specializes in brain injury, so severe strokes, all kinds of developmental problems. I saw speech for cognitive therapy. I saw physical therapy for vestibular training. Those were all helpful, but the problem was I kind of was stopped by the severe migraine, the severe light sensitivity, the balance issues, the brain fog, can't concentrate, can't remember, can't look at white on black, can't get on a computer, can't handle fluorescent light at all. And they finally said, "You have to get more help. We can't help you anymore until you can get this under control." And finally, it took 11 months to find a good neurologist who would listen to me and knew that there was a problem. And between the physical therapist who was doing the vestibular therapy had experience with Dr. Curtis, and this neurologist had experience with Dr. Curtis, they told me to go to him. And I got to him, and as soon as we could get it scheduled, we did a round of OMST. And we're 2 hours away. And so my husband, that was in the middle of, that was 2020. So it was a COVID, so he was working from home. So he was able to bring his computer and work from a hotel. And he just took me back and forth each day. And the OMST, you know, it has so many things. It sounds a little intimidating when you think about it, and it can be. But at that point, I was willing to try anything, and my husband was willing to force me to try anything because, similar to Sabrina, I was irritable, I was emotional, I had no energy, I was in pain. I had to have room darkening lights. We had to have an electrician come and put dimmer switches on every light in the house. I couldn't be around my grandchildren, who of course I loved. I missed family dinners, family birthday parties for the grandkids because 2 and 3-year-olds don't know how to be quiet, and I couldn't handle that. And I couldn't go to church anymore. I was used to doing medical mission trips. I couldn't do that. And so I did that, and I saw some dramatic improvement. I also then, after that improvement, I mean, I had better balance. I think that was one of the biggest things. I could walk, like, if we had been in here prior to that, and one of you guys were walking towards me and I was walking that way, I would have felt like I was going to fall down. So that was a huge difference. I was not lightheaded every time I moved. I had less migraines, and they were lower in frequency. I still had them. I was still taking medication with the neurologist, but all the symptoms improved. I then did therapy, vision therapy and occupational therapy with Holly with Dr. Curtis's office, and unfortunately, since we live so far away, they, because of COVID, come up with the home Zoom type therapy. And so I did that and saw even more progress, significant progress.
Because you were engaged, now ready to receive that vision therapy in a better way
Yes.
than you ever had. So we could have sent you back to any other professional, and they would have said, wow, now you're responding.
Yes,
Yeah.
my neurologist was impressed.
Yeah.
She really saw the difference, saw the change in the amount of medications I was taking. I actually did, and I don't know if this is common, but I actually did a second round
Right.
of OMST
Yeah.
a year later.
That would be
So I just did it this last October into November, and had even more, I totally overdid it November, December with the holidays. We talk about pacing and planning, about staying in a comfort zone, not overdoing it, getting into that danger zone. I totally overdid it because I was so excited, I was feeling better. But mid-January, it was like I woke up. I did not have to like lay in the recliner for like 4 hours every afternoon because I couldn't even function because I was just so tired because I was trying to do so much. I felt better, but I wasn't there yet. And mid-January, my husband, he looked at me, he said, I feel like that's when I got you back. Am I 100%? No.
Right.
But I am way, way closer than when I started with Dr. Curtis,
Well, good, great.
coordinating with the neurologist.
So Becky, the walking towards somebody and them coming at you and then just feeling off kilter. And, okay, I used to be a big Yoga Prism user, still do. Before then I started realizing I don't need the Yoga Prism. Let's get them through the OMST, and then if they still need it, great. But this does so many other things other than just balance and walk that, hey, why not just get the entire global sensory integration foundation built first? Then we're going to have much more success on all those other things, whether it's Yoga Prism, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing about the emotions, it's so powerful. Whoever uses Syntonics in here understands how we can affect emotions with Syntonics, but this is even more powerful. You see that affect, that personality coming back within 12 days, maybe sometimes a few days, maybe it's 30 days till we see it, but all of a sudden it's there. The brightness, the glow of my wife is back. I got my wife back and so forth, so.
And the friend said, you know, your speech is just now it's animated again. Before, she said, you were so slow and methodical and had to think through it.
Monotone and all that.
Yeah, monotone.
Yeah.
I couldn't even think of good words,
Right.
you know, and now I can come up with more applicable words and I can use 3 and 4 syllable words that I couldn't before.
So at the bottom of this handout is the kind of the direction in which you get the multisensory processing going. At the bottom, with those stimulations, you'll get that motions, memory starts getting, the brain gets clearer. Then we get our executive function potential back, and we can start receiving all those inputs. All right, thank you, Becky. Very nice. Alicia, she has herself and her daughter.
Yes.
This is a great combo.
Yeah. So I have a lot to talk about.
Well, we don't have all.
So my name's Alicia Taylor, and my profession is I am an IT service owner at Ohio University. So I am responsible for Ohio University's managed devices, printing, research computing environments, and flex spaces thanks to the pandemic. We now have hoteling spaces for people to come in who work remote. And so my job is very technical. It involves a lot of contract work, a lot of tech specs, things like that. I also would describe myself as a workaholic and an overachiever. So what happened to me, so I'll start with my story first,
Yeah, love it.
was 3 years ago, the day after Easter, so I'm almost at exactly 3 years. I had a grand mal seizure in an arcade with my daughter. I used the full force of my body and slammed myself into an arcade machine, which resulted in, I basically scalped myself, so 8 staples to close my head. It was a response to reactive hypoglycemia post-gastric bypass. So that was the cause of the seizure. Being the workaholic that I was, I don't remember anything other than everything going gray, and then the lights, the door of the ambulance opened into the hospital. I don't remember anything in between. I was in the hospital. I was screaming, not making any sense. The ER doctors were not necessarily delicate when stapling my head back together because I think they assumed that I was coming off a narcotic or there was some other issue. All I remember is asking is, do I have a concussion? Should I go to sleep? You know, that old story, like if you have a concussion, you don't let them go to sleep because they might not wake up. I kept asking that question. They're like, no, the scans came back clean. You're fine. Go home. The scans came back clean. Go home. So I went home that night. And I got up the next morning, and I got dressed, and I went to work. After spending hours screaming in ER on, you know, the pain I couldn't explain, you know, to anyone. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. I got up, and I drove myself to work, and I started working. And my boss came to me, and she said, you're not making any, you need to go home. Something's wrong. And I'm like, what are you talking? I'm making perfect sense. Like, what are you talking about? And that's when I started to realize that something was wrong. And so as a result of that, I got a moderate traumatic brain injury is what it ended up being. Nothing showed on the scans. There was no bleed, there was no nothing, but that's what the actual issue was. Just like everybody else, I went through the steps. I ended up with a sports medicine doctor who diagnosed it as a concussion, who then sent me for PT because I had no balance, who did some basic vision exercises, the beads on the yarn, and the focus on the stick kind of exercises. We did those for a couple weeks. I ended up in speech for my cognitive issues as well as my speech because I had lost a lot of memory. Not only did I have no working memory, I had literally lost chunks of memory as well as my vocabulary. So what I was seeing was I would go to work. I worked through all of this because, again, it's who I am. I would go to work and I could not read more than a line or two of an email before an overwhelming migraine would hit. I was so exhausted. They would see me in meetings, they'd call me the Duracell bunny because I'd be there and then my brain would shut off and then I'd come back because my brain was so overwhelmed and exhausted. You remember the Duracell bunny?
Yeah.
Or Energizer bunny? I don't know. The bunny was battered. But that's what people were seeing. And I was seeing where I had made edits to contracts and I didn't understand what I had written. It didn't make sense. I didn't have the vocabulary to explain it to someone. I had seen emails I had sent. I knew I had authored, but I had dictionary.com up in my inbox, and I was trying to figure out what I had tried to say in the email, what I had done. It was pretty traumatic. So I went through quite a bit of therapy, medication and Vanadine, things like that to try to treat it. It finally came to a point that the sports medicine doctor in Athens, who unfortunately is no longer in Athens, that's why we're trying to get folks into all the areas here, said, I'm going to send you to neuropsychiatry and neurooptometry because you are now beyond what we can help you with here. As a side note, I also went to my local optometrist. I said, I just can't see. I said, it's kind of in a tunnel, and I said, everything's like pixelated. And to see, I really, really have to focus. And I said, and it just literally is overwhelming my head. It hurts. And he's like, well, there's nothing wrong with your eyes. He said, we'll give you some glasses, some additional magnification. You're probably just overdoing it, that kind of stuff. So I left with some reading glasses and went home. Neuropsychiatry said, they did an assessment, gave me the assessment of the moderate TBI, and said that in some categories I was assessed. I was one of the most intelligent people she'd ever personally assessed. In other areas, there were significant deficits to the point of probable permanent disability. That was very scary to me, and I was not willing to accept it. A few weeks later, I came to Dr. Curtis's office. Doctors up until that point had said, you need to understand that it's been almost a year now, and this is your new reality. Your brain only has so much elasticity. We've done what we can. Here's some psychiatric services, some therapy to help you come to terms with what your life will be like now. I do not accept that. So I went to Dr. Curtis, and of course, I'm cocky. And I'm like, let's see what this guy says. I've been all those other people. And, he's asking questions, and he starts asking a lot of questions about my history, and then we worked together to realize that I had had probably prior brain injuries and probably some underlying PTSD as well. And I'm like, this guy, yeah, he's just going to sell me something, whatever. Sorry, I'm telling him the truth.
Oh, tell it like it is.
And stuff, and then I'm sitting there, and he flips blue lenses over my eyes. And he said, he's like, it's night. Is that better? Is that better? And these blue lenses come down. I'm like, stop, leave them on. And he said, why? I said, can I take these home? What are these made of? Who are you? Literally thought he was a voodoo doctor.
Yeah,
and I immediately, my migraine stopped with those blue lenses. Immediately. I had severe muscle pain. It stopped immediately. They were treating it like it was fibromyalgia. All these doctors trying to come up with something to help, right? The physical pain stopped. I immediately felt my chest released, and I didn't feel so crushed down, right? You feel lighter and all these things. And I'm like, I don't know what's in these, but I need these. And he's like, well, that tells me that I'm on the right track here. And so I myself went through the whole therapy. I can tell you that each day affects a different part of your brain, your emotions, your feelings. Day one, again, I was very skeptical, but I was literally at a point in my life where it's this or nothing. If this doesn't do anything, I don't know who else can help me. And so I put all my, cards in the deck and said, let's do this and just hope for the best. Any improvement is improvement at this point, because I was still a year out, unable to balance, unable to walk, hardly able to read, talk, those types of things. After the first session, I walked outside and I realized that I don't think I'd ever actually seen what the color green looked like, because the trees were green and everything. And I was like, is this what green looks like? And nobody actually told me. And all of a sudden I realized that I had my peripheral vision back and my eyes were autofocusing on their own. And I'm like, oh my God, did he just fix me in one session? I've been spending a year of my life crying in the bathroom because nobody knew how to fix it. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't have to be my reality. And so I went through the treatment, to Dr. Curtis's point, the emotional hand-holding as you go through that. I did have the memory burst to the point of brain injury, things like that, and you relive some of those emotions and things. And so, but it is literally the best investment of my entire life. And if you take anything away with you, take that.
All right, we are ready to shift gears. We've heard from concussion, concussion. Right now, same speaker, her daughter, after her concussion treatment was so profound for her through OMST and the blue filters. By the way, the blue filters, everyone here use those? Yeah, aren't they something, especially Chadwick E30, E50? Or anything that's that blue range. Game changers for me in 40% of cases of like her, maybe more. Why are they so effective? Why do they tell me they're meant for OMST? Because when I put those on a patient and they have that kind of reaction, it tells me they are having sensory dysregulation to the max through visual processing dysfunction, filtering difficulties, photophobia. It's not just brightness of light, it's sensitivity to certain frequencies. So that's why those blue filters work. They're carving out the green-yellow frequencies. Okay? They're not blue blockers. No. They're carving out the green, yellowish range and providing the patient with the ability to have somebody else filtering the light partially for them so that their brain doesn't have to do all the filtering on its own. As that brain is having assistance with filtering, thanks to the blue filters, the brain is able to then spend some of its energy on thinking and giving information to the body to walk. And people walk out with those glasses on, and all of a sudden they can stand more calmly, walk more calmly. Fabulous. Emotions all of a sudden become more regulated. Okay, because we're working from the bottom of the brain and going up. We're setting the foundation, the brainstem, subcortical regulation of all these sensory inputs. Multisensory regulation is now much more obtainable by the patient because we took some of those nasty frequencies away from their brain to have to filter on their own. Then these patients can get back to not using them eventually after they go through OMST, Syntonix. All right? Right? You're not wearing them right now. So anyhow, we're going to switch gears to the developmental side of things. All right? We ready?
Yeah. Story number 2. So I told you a lot about myself. I'm a workaholic. I'm an IT professional. I wasn't ready to accept my fate. And Dr. Curtis gave me a new life. What I didn't tell you is I'm also a single mom. My daughter has severe ADHD, severe presentation, with some undiagnosed behavioral sensory things that may or may not put her on the spectrum depending on who you ask. Prior to my own injury, we had been through everything. She had her diagnosis since she was about 3. I'd been to doctors who told me that she was a spirited 2-year-old. 2 doctors that said, yeah, this is textbook, we need to do a full assessment. We had had her vision assessed, we had her hearing assessed, we had her assessed on multiple sensory issues. There's actually a program where Nationwide Children's comes to Ohio University and assesses for children that may be on the spectrum, so that's where we got our official diagnosis. And I had done everything. I had had her tested for sleep apnea to make sure that that's what it wasn't presenting as. I had massage therapy, chiropractic, you name it. I've removed red dye, I removed dairy, I removed gluten. I had done all the elimination diets, I'd done all the things, I did all the research. So, meeting Dr. Curtis for the first time and walking through his office, he has a sensory learning program. So of course, I ask, what's that? Well, it's similar to the therapy that you're going to go through, but it's a little different. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just see how this pans out for me. And if it works well, we'll try it for my daughter. So, a year after I had my therapy, and then I was in a good place and could support my daughter going through it, she also went through a very similar therapy. What I can tell you is that Dr. Curtis gave us back our lives. So not only am I a fully functioning adult, I work full time, I'm a good mom, and I don't need anyone to tell me that. Good mom. And my daughter, who I had spent years, total transparency, when she was small, she was on a leash. I physically couldn't contain her in a space. She was too overwhelmed. I was her advocate. We had IEPs, we had assessments. I had done everything I could. to the fact that we were day 2 of her therapy in the office, and we sat to dinner for the first time and had a conversation over the table at the restaurant down the street from the office.
Day 2 of the OMSD?
Mhm.
Day 2?
And I went, so this is what being a parent's supposed to be like. It's not running, it's not chasing, it's not fighting, it's not forcing a kid into clothes she doesn't want to wear. Because it feels funny, Mommy, it feels funny, it feels strange, the lights are too bright, we can't be in the car. Put blinds on the car, Mommy. Mommy, why can't I read like the other kids, Mommy? All the things you do, you cannot force a child to be at the level of their peers. My child is unique, and definitely so. And literally between the 2 therapies combined, not only was I able to unlock my brain, I hadn't been functioning with full emotions. I had been in a survival, almost primitive state for probably since her birth or before. Not only did I have my full functioning and my emotions and everything back, she did too. So the 2 weeks 12 days that she was up here in the office going through the therapy, we rebonded and we have the best relationship possible. And I won't say I got my child, I got my child, because I didn't know what my child was capable of. We have far exceeded all IEP goals. The school is completely shocked and trying to sell them, like, hey, there's a thing, you gotta go tell parents to go to the thing. You need a flyer, I'll make you a flyer. Kind of thing. The school doesn't know what to think. My family doesn't know what to think. She had been heavily medicated. At this point, we really just have some underlying like test anxiety kind of stuff still going on. But now her ADHD is pretty much non-existent. So, and several will tell you she would sing through the therapy with her beautiful little voice. But so I want to thank Dr. Curtis personally for literally giving us lives. So I just wanted to share that with all of you.
Very, very nice. So one thing so what I wanted to comment was, you made a mention of she couldn't be told how to behave. You can't cortically address these kind of neurological systems. You have to reteach these neurological systems in a very safe clinical situation such as the OMST, because it is completely passive, not active. It is bottom up. We went back and addressed the areas that for some reason didn't develop properly, whether it's embryo, infancy, who knows? Doesn't matter. Let's provide the patient an opportunity to go back and relearn sensory regulation. That's the key here. All right. Then they can take that top down. Now do that. So one patient recently, now for the first time the mom could tell the child, the 7-year-old, for the first time ever, to go down the basement, get your shoes, you left them down there, and also, by the way, do this and that, and get your coat on. Sequential processing for the first time ever, he was able to do it. That was really, really amazing. He could cortically actually do executive function instead of behaviorally just completely be oblivious to the instructions that were given. So, very cool. Okay, now, we have another case that's just as amazing as possible. And all these folks have been coming to the office for the OMST, going an hour and a half to 2.5 hours drive. I didn't select these patients for that reason. It's just amazing how far they have to drive to get this. I need you guys to get it. You got to get it around this country, okay, around the world. So, how many hours? Belpred's 2+.
It's about 2 hours and 15 minutes.
And for you to come here and you all to share your time, I'm not paying you, right? No. No.
Although I did hear if we lose our valet ticket, you're going to buy us a new car.
Oh, right. Wow.
Some free new blue glasses.
More blue glasses, okay, that's fine. Okay. So Shannon.
So mine's a little different. Jace is my son.
Jace, 7-year-old.
He's 8 now. He turned 8.
Okay.
So he's always, it took a while to get diagnosed with whatever they settled on. So right now the settlement is ADHD, generalized anxiety disorder, autism spectrum disorder, and there's a chromosome thing in there that apparently is so rare they don't know that it can contribute to anything. But So he's always been like quirky for autism. Like he didn't really fit in the container for autism either. Similar to what you just heard. I'm an early childhood mental health therapist. I started specializing in sensory processing disorders, so we were doing all the treatments. We have a sensory gym in my basement. Like, we do it daily.
Okay,
We
so
love
you've
it.
already done a lot of sensory before you came to.
Yes.
So, but did you do controlled, safe, clinical, multi-sensory integration like we did?
No, we did not.
Okay, with Syntanis, with the power of Syntanis.
And so we had progress. We had like a 70% reduction in his pica.
Oh, good.
But it was
Before-
still there.
Before getting dust.
And we were still getting CAT scans. And the biggest problem that we were having was the aggression. So he was 2 years old the first time I dodged a vacuum cleaner. He was 4 years old the first time I dodged my kitchen table.
When you
Various
say dodge your
different.
kitchen table,
Yeah,
what do you mean?
he picked it up to throw it.
Okay, all right. I want you to. tell
Which
that.
is amazing, because at that point, he was 24 pounds. I don't know how he did it.
Just,
Just picked it up and threw it at me. I don't even think threw it at me. I think he just threw it, and I happened to be in that direction. Because I'm trying to interview.
okay.
So we just dealt with it, because that's what I do. Tell parents to come deal with it, so I dealt with it. And then I had an infant. I had another child. And his younger brother was 6.5 weeks, 7 weeks old, the first time he tried to physically attack him.
Physically what?
Physically attack him.
Okay, let's speak those words.
And I'm just trying to keep
I know
it
it's
together because
emotional. I know
it's
it's
a rough
emo-
story.
I know it's emotional, but we're here for you, we're here.
By the time that I accessed Dr. Curtis, my house, and I just want to give you this visual, not that I'm proud of it, it was very embarrassing, but there was not a room that didn't have gates because at all times the baby had to be separated from the 7-year-old for safety. It was very rare for them to get to play together, and I had to be in between them. Not because he was constantly, every day aggressive. I mean, that would happen. It was weird, it went in cycles. So on average, I would say 3 to 5 times a week, but sometimes it would be 7 weeks of no sleep and constant aggression every day. And then sometimes it would just every other day or every third day. So when we came, we made it like to day 4, and he was telling me that he didn't like it, he was tired, but he was excited to go, so like he just didn't really know what to think. And after the morning treatment, we went back to the hotel that we were staying at, and I thought for sure we were getting kicked out because I seen the light in his eye go off. And he was getting ready to throw things, and I grabbed the baby, and he took a nap right after that. Like, it just calmed down, he laid down and went to sleep. Came back in, I've never, Shelly, I'm sorry, I love you to death, but never wanted to hit somebody so much in my life because she got excited. And she was like, I can call the doctor, but he's gonna tell you this is great, this means good progress.
Yeah. What was that happened that made me happy and us happy? The fact that.
That he actually had the dysregulation.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
And then we were seeing like symptoms like happening.
Yes, right.
The emotional outburst.
Right.
But emotional outburst in my world means who's getting hurt, me or the baby, and can I keep everyone safe,
Mhm.
including
Mhm.
Jace,
Mhm.
because he wasn't safe for himself. So we made it through the 12 days, and it did get easier at about day 9, but then it got sad. It was really tough to watch as a parent, and it was really tough to even sit up here and listen to the stories because he's not able to like explain to me cognitively what that was like going through the treatment, so it was really hard to hear that, but it kind of enlightening, and thank you. Because I've never really gotten that narrative. And then we went home, and we noticed, and he has a whole team of therapists, as you can imagine, and we noticed that, like, okay, he's experiencing his emotions, but the good thing is he's not holding it in, he's letting it out, he's telling people how he feels, which means we're not getting the big explosions.
Yeah.
So, first day back to work, first day back into his summer camp program, told him, hey, you might see some, like, a little bit of irritability that you don't normally see from him, but it's good, it's not as extreme now. They met me at the front door, 4 staff members. Met me at the front door, I was scared to death, I thought we were going to Nationwide for an inpatient stay. And they said, we just want you to know, we have never seen him behave this well. He did better today than he's ever done. That thing continued throughout the summer. He had a few dysregulations, but it was all like sadness and emotional stuff, not aggression. He actually expressed an emotion other than aggression.
Yeah.
Yes.
An expression other than aggression. Yeah. So sadness and other things. So yeah, he was starting to be more person.
We went through the 18 days at home,
Yeah.
the light box, that was rough at some point.
Yeah.
Again, ended up being the best thing ever. By that point, I felt like a pro. I was like, oh yay, happy for that. He did really good, and since we finished the end of July, that first week, we had one elopement with self-injury, going to the dentist, so that was a trigger anyways. But he came right back, well, after the injury, came right back to me, got in the car, went to the dentist, did fine. We've had 2, well, I guess it began last week, 3 instances of aggression, but they have been so small scale that I'm kind of like, don't all 8-year-olds like do that? You know?
Right.
There's only been one instance that was like not instigated by someone else or wasn't self-defense. That was just aggressive. Since the end of July.
So frequency of extreme aggression was how many times a week or a day?
It varied, but it was pretty much on an average like 3 to 5 times a week. But there would be times where it would be daily, and when I say aggression, it started, it might stop an hour from then. Yeah, it might be on it for the next 8 to 10 hours.
Wow. Okay.
It was, that we had a standing roll. If we hit hour 3, I called in supports and someone came and got the baby to keep the baby safe.
Wow. Have you had to do that since?
No, but I've had to send that baby.
Yeah, the baby, okay, but,
No.
So how often is there severe aggression?
We've had one instance
Okay,
since
since what?
the end of July.
So 7, 8, 9 months, one episode.
Yeah, I think it
I mean,
was
it's
around
just
August,
crazy.
September.
It's crazy.
Now,
Great,
we didn't
awesome.
have the huge, like, we're still on meds, we still do therapies. He still has ADHD. The reading, that's the weird part to me, the reading has improved. He's improved us 3 reading levels. But it was the aggression for us. Like, I was kind of like, oh, yay, the
Well,
ADHD
he's
is
so
going to
much,
get better.
he's so much more sensory regulated. He can now do reading because cortically he can now take on those things.
Yes.
It was there for the digging. Now we got a foundation for him.
I think when we came to you, he was testing at the end of a pre-kindergarten grade level. He was going to go into his 2nd year of 1st grade. And he's still got a little bit of a delay, but he's in a 1st grade level for reading. And he's on a general curriculum for 1st grade with straight A's right now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You want to tell him what you told me out as you left my exam room after follow-up or not?
Which one?
Oh.
The
So,
cost?
yeah.
Had
Man, I'll quote you. She said, leaving my exam room at the follow-up visit, she goes, by the way, had I known we would have put a stop to this aggression, I would have paid you $20,000 for this.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we took advantage of him.
Yeah, you did. I haven't raised the fees at all. No, I want this to get to everybody, so we've got to make it work.
I mean, I was starting to compare, like, am I going to be able to keep both of my children in my home? And which one goes?
Yeah.
Safely.
Thank you. Adam, you ready? Adam's a long haul. Were you done? I'm sorry. Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, so 9 years ago, we had you through our system. Yeah, you're one of our long haulers because I've been doing it 12 years. And I'd love to hear a little bit of your memory of it. Okay?
So my experience is pretty similar to some of the previous brain injury patients. Their memory of it is a lot more detailed
By
than
the way,
mine.
concussion, go back to concussion.
So on the 25th of March in 2013, I was hit in the head by a horse. It come up at the top of its head and hit me under the chin, and that caused my head to go back and bounce my brain back and forth inside my skull. At the time, it was early morning, there was snow cover on, and I remember it just looking like the entire landscape was covered with like a splotchy kind of Mountain Dew colored light. So this, I'm kind of a long-winded fellow. This is a tough story to tell in just a few minutes, so I'll try to give you the shortest version I can. That was on a Monday. Long story short, by Saturday I couldn't walk by myself. And so they took me into the ER here in Columbus, and they gave me a CT scan, and there wasn't a brain bleed, and they gave me some parameters and sent me home. But I went into probably 6 months, I reckon, cycle of resting and trying to get through to where I wasn't feeling the symptoms as I knew them, which I didn't even understand all the symptoms that brain injuries brought on at that point. We weren't given very good information initially as far as what to look for and how to evaluate the injury. So I would rest a while and then I would try to go back to work, and I would rest a while and I would try to go back to work. For example, one of those days that I was trying to go back to work, I was a farrier by trade. And I remember a colleague going with me and helping me with my work of a day. And I had to ask him, we were evaluating a horse as it walks, and I could not take in the information with my eyes and process it with my head and determine whether or not that horse was landing heel first or toe first. Well, that was a critical thing to evaluate, and I just couldn't do it, and I didn't know why I couldn't do it. So things just kept getting worse and worse, and my balance was going, and I was losing my ability to read, and I was starting to have to walk with a cane, and we got passed along from doctor to doctor until we got to Steve here, and so that, I don't know if it was late that summer or early that fall, maybe. I think it was early that fall. They put me through the first round of this therapy. And to be honest with you, I don't remember a lot about the first round, especially.
Right, you were a zombie.
Yeah, I was not in a good place. I remember it being very difficult to get here, to travel here, and to travel home each day. I remember being on the table and seeing the light, and I remember hearing those broken auditory.
Yeah.
And I vaguely remember some significant improvement from that therapy, but was still in just a really bad place. Even in that winter, for example, my wife's grandma had sent us some food, and she had put together a meal of meatball subs and had written instructions of how to put it together and prepare it. It's already done. It's frozen meatball subs. You get it out, you put it together, you heat it up. She had step-by-step instructions, and I couldn't read them and figure it out. And that was probably 10 or 11 months after the injury, and after one round of therapy.
Right.
So we did the therapy again about a year after the first time. And again, my memory isn't as clear as to the specifics of the results at that time. I can remember that after that, after that second round, I was able to stop walking with a cane on smooth ground. I still had to use that out in the field. But I remember it helping a lot with my sleep, which was huge. And I think for me, most importantly, what it did for me was it got me ready to start recovering. You know, the therapies that we were getting from them and from other doctors after a couple of rounds of this stuff started making a lot more progress, and we started being able to do more and understand more about what was going on around me and process things better. But I was, like I say, I was working as a farrier by trade when I got hurt, and I lost the business because of that, and went 5 years without being able to work at all. And I'm confident that I would not have gotten back to work were it not for the services that this man provided. And I'm happy to announce that not only have I been back to work now for a few years, but we're reopening my farrier practice this year.
What is farrier? Everybody know what farrier is?
No, no clue.
I know, I didn't either, so, in a nutshell.
Well, we're sure.
For sure, yeah.
So we're,
That's
you know, we had the
That's
discussion the other day in your office
Yeah.
about what percentage of your previous self you were, and through a medium ground between mine and my wife's answer, which hers is always more accurate. We settled on roughly 80%. But there's no way I would have got to that point without this therapy. No way. And I feel that the common theme that I'm getting from hearing all this discussion and from combined with my own experiences, that there's all these other therapies that you guys are doing that can be done, but this gets you ready to get better. This gets you ready to do those things and for those things to work at their fullest potential.
There you go.
And I think that's a good representation of what my experience has been, and I think I'm still living that out. I'm better now than I was a year ago. I'm better now than I was 3 years ago, and I believe that I will be better next year than I am today.
So I'm going to say, what I tell patients is, you're here and you're going on this kind of progress. We're going to go like that so that we can eventually get you up to closest to your pre-injury self as possible. But if you're on this, I'm not getting better plateau, or barely getting better, OMST takes and bumps it up, gets that trajectory going, and then it continues for the other therapies to keep you going in the direction, whereas those other therapies kind of got to a point where, how many times did I hear, it's not working, there's nothing else we can do.
Accept it.
Get back down.
Yeah.
I don't remember what doctor told me this, but I was told, and I remember this very clearly, that you will do the vast majority of your healing in the first year. And we got to the end of the first year, and I hadn't done hardly any healing.
Until you got
And I have
some of
done
the things.
tremendous healing since then. And I really think that this getting me ready to get better is what got that started.
Good. I think we're all good.
And the phrase, your brain only has so much elasticity at your age.
No, we proved that wrong, didn't we?
What?
Well, that's why these colleagues are here. They understand that, neuroplasticity. We can make change. It doesn't matter how many years it's been since the injury. Some of my favorite cases are patients with concussion 10 years ago, when they come in and we can make some change. It's
Now, after hearing all this and kind of rehashing some of these things that I haven't thought about in a while, I honestly, I kind of wish we would have hit a third round.
Yeah, we can.
Not just now or in
We should have done
general,
that.
but
Yeah.
there was a specific point in my recovery based on what had happened in my work life after I made it back to work, that I'm
That's
like,
great.
wow, that would have been,
Yeah.
that would have been a good
We've
time.
learned to repeat it more often and more frequently or sooner. Becky went through it twice. We realized, okay, I can start seeing the signs in the patients. We are starting to realize when we need to pull the trigger, get you back into the OMST program. Sometimes it's only for a couple times a week for a while, not the whole 12 days. Sometimes that's all you need. I wish we had a home unit or a mobile unit to take it to your places. Wouldn't that be, who would love that?
I love that.
Mobile unit of this. And just take it and park it at your office,
So we're
let you guys use it for a while,
Irritability
you'll
comes
love
back.
it. All right, so I'm gonna wrap it up with question answer. Anybody have questions here before we?
When they gave the therapy, was it just once in the day? Like, were there 2 sessions?
There's 2 sessions,
Two
but they're back to back. Or there's some space like time in between. If we feel the patient needs 2 to 3, 4 hours in between sessions, just depends on the patient. That's something we train you on and teach you to look out for. But most of these folks could handle the back-to-back. We do some mild oculomotor work in between the 2 sessions because I'm a big believer in starting to get the top-down introduced as soon as possible. As soon as the patient looks like there's signs of them to be able to handle saccades and pursuits without getting nausea or severe migraine increase, let's start giving them that. Okay?
And
Yeah.
how long are the sessions?
Sessions are 25 to 30 minutes twice a day for 12 days, including a weekend. And then it's 18 days of home light therapy twice a day,
Twice a day,
morning and night.
20 minutes each time.
20 minutes each time, morning and night. Yeah, and then it's a follow-up visit. About a week after they finish all that, we have them back for a follow-up visit. Sometimes it's we go right to the traditional weekly therapy or resume that. A lot of times we have our concussion patients who, most of them do start the therapy, the OMST right away. That's the first thing they need to start with. Sometimes for logistic reasons, or we may not have room on the schedule, we'll start them on traditional therapy very gently, or home syntonics only. But starting with this, I could never practice ever again without this. It's just no way. It would be
Me either.
unbelievably
Are
difficult.
they wearing any prescription glasses while they're laying on?
No prescription glasses. We prefer no contacts, no interference of any kind of diffraction, refraction, diffusion of the light. It needs to get to that retina uninhibited.
Yeah, and the light box is only,
Yeah, it's a arm distance away, so we do that.
But when they're laying, when they're doing
Oh.
the OMST,
Yeah.
they don't have any glasses on?
Correct,
No.
correct, correct.
And I was really worried about my daughter being able to sit still for it. I mean, quite honestly, to lay on a bed and just for half an hour at a time. She had a longer break in between. I went back to back with some exercises in between, but we did hers morning and afternoon. And I actually live far away, so I came
Right.
to Columbus and stayed in a hotel for 2 weeks. If that shows my commitment to doing that, but what I found was very easily. The office staff, who was working with her, very easily got her to settle and to focus. And once she was locked on the light, then she was in.
Yeah, it was- yeah.
Once she's there, she's entranced. Same thing with the light box at home. I was worried, like, is she really going to sit in the closet with the light box? Like, will she do that? Once it's on, yep. Good luck keeping her awake though.
Exactly.
Wake up.
That was ours.
Wake up, wake up, because it was so relaxing and so calming to her. But I was worried that she would reject it and fight it, but she completely.
So we have a return panelist. Sabrina wants to
Hi.
say something else.
I have no idea what you're trying to tell me, Mom. But basically, I also wanted to. Oh, thank you. I wanted to add that right after OMST, I didn't need prism lenses anymore, so that was huge. Let's see what else.
The yoke prism.
The
The yoked prism, probably. Okay, not for mine. I forgot she's not an optometrist. It's okay. We have different types of prism, okay? And that's why I was wondering, because I can't remember if you had the yoke prism from Dr. Patrick or compensation prism. Okay, my fault. We'll edit that out.
Eighth grade. No.
Let's see. What else changed? A lot of things changed.
Oh, a lot of things changed.
I can tell you I'm a ballerina, and after my concussion, I would go to do my little pirouettes, and I was kicking the other girls in class and smacking them with my arms. And I could not turn it in a straight line anymore. And after OMST, my dancing has literally never been better. Never.
What?
Yeah,
You
really.
never told me that.
I know, I didn't get to it.
It didn't come up.
Oh, and the other thing, which was really, really surprising, was that, so I also have ADHD, and that came with some sensory issues that I've had my whole life. I did not realize that the reason that I would procrastinate starting a bath is because I hated the noise that it would make when the water would start and fill the tub. And so I went to take a bath maybe 7 days into the treatment, and for the first time in my life, I didn't jump when the faucet turned on. And I was like, wait a minute, like, this is how everyone else hears it? I had no clue. So that was probably the most surprising thing that happened, but it just tells you how powerful it is.
Can't hold it. Good. What else? There's some juicy stuff
Oh
here.
yeah, I mean,
It's okay. You're finished, that's okay. Oh, she's got a book. I'm sorry, she's got a book. Never mind. No.
What I found, because I did the prisms and the eye therapy before, what I found, prior to the OMST, and I did that for a good 2 years, is that the prisms were kind of like holding my neurooptometric stuff like steady, but I really wasn't making much progress forward. I know that there were benefits to it, because when we've done the testing with you guys, like my numbers for flexibility and stuff, those are really high. So I know that like it helped, but I needed this therapy, like you had said, so that I could get better.
Yes, right. And she's still wearing some really mild binasal occlusion, so this doesn't replace everything else we do. Wow, can it make lives change for the better significantly, powerfully? Yeah.
I would just like to say, like, I don't really understand the eye stuff because that's not my realm. But, I mean, I explained to you the gates in my house, and literally there was a gate from my living room to my kitchen, from my kitchen to my dining room. The bedrooms were gated. There was not a room without gates to keep them separated. But the difference without that aggression, like, they actually are siblings now, and they actually share a bedroom.
Sure. Wow.
Safely.
Yeah. Safely.
And safely. And if I go to redirect the now 2-year-old, because he's 2, don't bite, don't hit, not nice, Jace will oftentimes like make excuses for him and be like, oh, he wasn't gonna bite me, he was tickling me. So he's protective now.
Yeah.
And
so he's-
to see that happen from like
yeah.
just months is,
Unbelievable.
I don't know what the eyes has got to do with it. I
Right.
love it, okay? So you should do it with every kid that walks in that has an issue with sensory dysregulation.
I guess that's our plea to you, right?
Yes.
Collectively, our plea
Yeah.
to you is we have done everything right. We went to all the right doctors, we asked all the right questions, we kept fighting, kept trying,
Mhm.
did what we were told, did the exercises, did whatever, but we didn't get relief until we got the OMST, and for myself and for my daughter. So I guess I'm gonna make a collective plea on our behalf, not his, our behalf, is I will have grandchildren one day who will likely have ADHD. I need this to be there in case I go through this again. What if I have more children and this guy decides to retire and play music or something?
Yeah.
What am I
It's
gonna
gonna
do? Like, I know that sounds really bad, but
Don't tell my staff that, they will die.
disregard the people in the back. But I guess that's just our collective plea.
Yes, and like make it, we need more people doing it so we're not searching for this for 5-6 years.
Or driving hours each way.
I mean, do you know how much damage could be done between a parent-child relationship in 5 years?
Yep.
And
I do.
thankfully, I get it. I was mental health and I was able to somewhat preserve that, but there was a point where I didn't know if I was going to be able to.
This has been wonderful, wonderful. Becky?
I think one of the things that I really liked, besides the benefits, okay, so I'm in the medical field and I like to see the science. And what I liked is they did testing when I first came. Some of it was subjective testing, some of it was their objective testing on memory and vision and different things. And then they did it again after the OMST. And then they did it when I was doing the vision and occupational therapy. And each time they could say, well, your peripheral vision, your depth perception, these things, you know, and my irritability, my emotions, my balance, you know, whether it was both the subjective and the objective testing, all showed improvement. And that was something that, you know, my husband would say, oh, good, you know, look at this, you are making progress. Even though sometimes you get discouraged because you're like, I'm still not myself. But yet that testing is encouraging along the way.
Good point.
I make photocopies of mine and hung it on the refrigerator.
Hey.
And I make copies of my kids and I put them on the refrigerator. Shelly knows, she photocopies them. But because I like numbers too. And I could see it and go, huh, look at that color field. Yeah, that's looking good.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah,
You
color
know?
fields, woohoo!
You know, it was,
Yeah.
it was great to see the numbers.
All right.
Anybody from Cincinnati area, please? Please?
No, yep, so. they're
Well,
gonna keep
yeah,
up.
but practitioner-wise. Well, please
Well,
tell
this is-
any colleagues.
Yeah, this is
pass
gonna be,
along.
that's why I videotaped this, because we're going to make this available for you all, or in agreement to that.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, we wanna tell the world,
I
right?
want to see it on PBS and
Got it.
NBC.
If we get enough places, I'll be so happy.
There needs to be a commercial.
Videographers, you good? Okay, all right. If anybody wants to ask these individual questions, if they're willing and happy to stay, great. I say we call it a night. The bar's still open. Food's cold, but bar's open till, let's see. We're ending this. 4 minutes. Thank you for coming.